Like a fat guy putting on shots, you split your sides at Thursday Thoughts. Welcome to this week's edition of Thursday Thoughts with Eddie Anchor. I'm your host, Eddie Anchor. We're going to launch straight into it this week. We're going to go first cap off the rank. Bunga versus Robbo. Even with a host of big ins this week, including the one and only Chris Judd, Robbo will be hard pressed to even fill a team of 18 this week. Not that having a full team will have any bearing on this match at all. The only true measurable for who wins this match is how well Gary Ablett plays. All season he has managed to carry Bunga's team to every single win that he's had. But finally the cracks are starting to appear, and this time they're not in Bunga's arse or in Gary Ablett's shin bones as he struggles to carry Bunga's team to its next victory. This is the first of what I expect to be many dead rubbers to come for the rest of the year. With more than half the season already gone, it is hard to see anyone breaking back into the top four, especially not either of these two plotters. That being said, Bunga's 1 from 5 from his last 5 games. I expect that trend to continue. Robbo by 93 points. Steve versus Tricky. A huge blow was struck at the heart of Tricky's team last week as his leader and captain, Joe Watson, was struck down with a torn rectum. When Tricky was questioned about how that injury occurred, he just commented, "I'm packing heat." Until his star player is fit to return to the track, he will be busy continuing his studies in the pharmaceutical field as he attempts to become a fully licensed chemist. Not sure what that's all about, Joby. Steve, on the other hand, will be hoping he hasn't bitten off more than he can swallow this week, in the wake of a failed trade deal for his star player David Swallow. With 3, possibly 4 players out of his lineup, including both of his ruckmen, it's going to be exceptionally difficult for Steve to get over the top of Tricky's juggernaut this week. This is a huge game for both clubs as Steve looks to close the gap on the top 6, where Tricky is just trying to stay in touch with the league leaders. Tricky by 94 points. The Commish versus Matt. And it's all over bar the shouting this year for the Commish as he's officially closed up shop on a possible league victory last week as he went down to Chris by 11 points. He was available for comment, but only briefly, and he managed to say, "We are extremely disappointed with how the season has panned out. While we felt we have had all the ducks in a row this year, none of those ducks were defenders. We could have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in wages this year if instead of defenders, we just bought 6 orange cones from Kmart." Fair point. Matt will be looking for nothing more than a comfortable 4 points this week against a lowly opponent. The only thing that could derail the M Express this week will be a boulder on the tracks by the name of Nate the Knife Fife. Scoring 108 points in 3 quarters last week, he is in red hot form and will be hoping to run Matt into the cliffside. But I can't see it happening. Matt by 30 points. Now, we move on to Ben versus Callum. This is a match many well-educated pundits had tipped to be the wooden spoon derby this year. And they were pretty much spot on. For all of Callum's recent form improvement, he still finds himself a 15th away from the bottom of the ladder. In fact, an unfavourable group of results this week, and he could be in line to add to his wooden spoon collection again this year. The only problem in this fairy tale is that not only is Ben sitting on the worst team ever compiled, he's missing his star import in Kurt Tippett, who is set to miss a couple of games with a meniscus injury. With Ricky Henderson, Sam Mitchell and Toby Green already sidelined from his list, he can ill afford to have any more late outs. Some questions have already been started to be asked about how seriously Ben is even taking this season. Coach Bunga has already raised the concern of tanking. When this was put to Ben in a midweek press conference, Ben responded with, and I quote, "Fuck you, Bunga. What time does your bus arrive to take you back to the home?" Now, I'm not too sure what he was talking about there, but I'm sure he wasn't mincing words. With North set for another easy game this week, it's tough to see Callum losing to this rabble. Callum by 210 points. Tom versus Chris. Not since the biblical tales of Lazarus has there been such an epic tale of revival. Chris has somehow managed to win 3 of his last 5 games, and after looking certainly dead and buried for the year, all of a sudden he has risen to the lofty heights of 8th. And he has greater achievements on his mind. But enter Tom. Good team, top of the ladder, box for a house. This could be a battle for the ages. The first modicum of injury pain is starting to sneak into the ranks of Tom's lineup this week, as Michael Johnson, his number 1 defender, has gone down for 4 weeks. I can't see that being too much of a concern for him though. He's won 10 of his last 12 games, so it will take a few more branches to break before we see any weakness in this lineup. Another big victory coming up for Tom, and a nice slice of reality to be served to Chris, straight up. Tom by 130 points. Hayden versus Andy. This match is that important in the overall scheme of both of these teams' seasons. Hayden and Andy may actually leave their house to attend them. Having coached from Skype in their respective bunkers for the past 3 months, tanning by the light of their computer monitors, we aren't even all that sure that Hayden is even running his team anymore. He may very well be on autopilot. Recent results will probably explain that. From all the way over in Japan, with very little communication with his mates, never coming out to see any of us, never leaving his house. For all we know, he could very well be living at home. It's no different. For Andy, he has relinquished a controlling share of his team to his lovely missus. This would explain a lot. Mainly the fact the team isn't running like a bucket of arse, and the fact they're actually doing what they're told. Certainly reeks of the fact that Steph's running the team. The winner of this will possibly be the last man standing in the race for the top spot. I think Andy is overdue for a stinker after last week's massive performance. So I'm tipping Hayden by 32 points. Now, we move on to the ladder. It's becoming more and more like a broken record as we take a look at the ladder this week. Once again, as per usual, Tom sits on top of the league, while Matt looks like the man most likely to catch him. It's always a nervy period for top spot when the bloke in second position has a higher percentage. Below these two is a group that are hotly in pursuit. Very unlikely to make any inroads at this stage, but it could go close. The battle for the spoon heats up, with Chris managing to scamper clear, leaving the 3 bottom draft picks to occupy the 3 bottom spots. Once again, Ben is holding everybody up with his shit team. Now we cross live to Thunderdome headquarters, where I believe there is an extremely important announcement to be made by the commissioner of our league. Yes, welcome ladies and gentlemen. I hate to bring you out in the comfort of your homes in this cold evening, but this is an extremely important press release that just couldn't wait until the morning. Besides, I was lonely and drunk, and couldn't find the keys to get into my house, so I figured I'd come down to Thunderdome headquarters and make this release now. Now, a few hours ago my office was contacted with knowledge that one of my clubs has been issued with 15 show cause notices. Now we have the details of those notices here. It would seem that Bunga's team has been issued 15 show cause notices for providing his team with performance inhibiting drugs through the course of the 2013-2014 season. Asada is basing these findings on the fact that nobody can be that poor for that long, and especially since he's been given pick 1 for this season and still managed to only be sitting 6th on the ladder. They're backing these claims with the decreasing performance of most of his team. They're basically saying that the only way any team could be that bad for that long would be if the coach was actually missing a portion of his brain. So basically, the only defence that Bunga's going to have in this matter will be a full frontal lobe scan, and if he can prove that he is actually missing most of his brain, then his team will be free to play on for the rest of the year. Until then, Gary Ablett will be suspended effective immediately, and the rest of his team will be charged with 50% of their points over the course of the season. Now, we don't know where this is headed for the rest of the year or what this means for the coach, but all we can say is the league will be offering their full support behind Bugger, like we've been doing all year. Thank you very much for coming out. Now, I'll get back to my bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon. Enjoy. Now it's time for Free Agent of the Week. Fresh off a career best game, this young forward showed on the weekend that he could potentially make a very good AFL player yet. Often criticised for his disposal efficiency and slightly unpredictable goal kicking, Rowan Buick has always had the hallmarks of a good player in the making. With an uncanny knack for tracking the ball and clean hands in traffic, he may not need more than just a little bit of confidence to get up and about. He completely tore the Dogs to shreds on the weekend, racking up a massive 113 points. This week he lines up against the GWS, who, let's be honest, aren't exactly renowned for their defensive prowess, especially on an unknown player like Rowan Buick. Let's look for a huge score from Rowan Buick this week and get on board him. Now, Eddie just needs to wind up a little bit here. Coming in off the long run, this one's a little near and dear to my heart. So, without further ado, we move on to this week's Eddie Anchor's Weekly Wanker. This week's Weekly Wanker is an exceptionally late entry. There were a few this week that went mighty close, and had this late entry not made such a lunge for the line, the award could have been going to someone else. The beauty of this week's award is that most of the reasons behind the person getting it were put forward by another member of the Thunderdome in one of his many rants. All I did was agree wholeheartedly and just cobble it together into something mildly entertaining. This week's wanker has had the award coming all year. He doesn't manage to isolate his moronic behaviour to just 1 week though. No. It's more of an ongoing theme for this fella. He's possibly one of the worst super coaches to ever roam the face of the earth, with less clue about what's going on than Michael Schumacher. So, you laugh at reasonable trade offers when they're made to you. You give away Chad Wingard and Joel Selwood, and you make fucking retarded trade offers to people. The straw that broke the camel's back came tonight, when this particular individual chose to offer either one of Trent Cotchin or Ben Cunnington, who are ranked 48th and 50th in the midfield group, for Sam Jacobs, ranked number 3 in the ruck group, the hardest group of all of them. There's only 3 ruckmen that average over 100. Now, I'm not going to explain all the fundamentals of trading, but suffice to say, you're doing it wrong. Now, I don't want to name names as to where this week's nomination came from. Let's just call him Callum A. Thank you very much for your nomination, and keep them coming. Steve! You will finally have a weekly wanker award to pin next to your mittens on your jumper this week. That's all we've got time for this week. It's been a pleasure as always. I wish everyone luck and a close game. See you next week. Bye for now.
Thursday night is here again, a little after 10:15. The wife's asleep, the children too. That leaves a man with one thing to do. Bring out the laptop, it's time for your date. Settle in and learn your fantasy fate. With a bang, Eddie welcomes you in. He turns his hat, then it's time to begin. The week that was, you might rather forget. Who is the dud and who is the jet? Start the weekend with a dose of the anchor, and laugh your ass off a weekly wanker. Like Federer down at the cots, here's your servile Thursday thoughts. Like a hobo eating his Watts, here's your fill of Thursday thoughts. Like a fat guy putting on shorts, you'll split your sides at Thursday Thoughts.